I feel like one of the most overlooked feelings in video games is the feeling of wonder. From when you get into a new world and feel compelled and curious to explore to wanting to experiment with the game's features. In most games, you don't feel compelled to go out of your way to explore and experiment. Or if you do, it doesn't feel as rewarding. In the search of providing increasingly more content to the player, it's often forgotten how magical games can be. Does modern game design guide the player way too much? Do we really need the yellow paint? Sometimes the best experience found in video games is one that not everyone's gonna have. In Outer Wilds, you play as a space explorer of an alien race in its early stages of space travel. The game has you exploring different planets in the solar system, following the footsteps of a dead and far more evolved civilization. You make these travels alone. The echoes of the past that you uncover, beings that were once alive, bickering, fighting, discovering, falling in love, hoping, are no more, increasing the feeling of loneliness amidst the vast and humbling beauty of space. After a few minutes, the world collapses and you'll die. Reborn, you'll wake up remembering everything, and 4 questions will remain on your mind. 4 questions that'll drive you to search every inch of the universe for answers. Why did this far more advanced civilization die? Why is the world ending every 20 minutes? How do I stop it? And how does this planet work? In Outer Wilds, every planet works differently, like a puzzle that keeps getting deeper and deeper. Knowledge is your weapon and main tool to advance, either through observation and experimentation or gathered from those that came before you. Everything about this game can be seen as a possible spoiler because understanding how the world works is how you eventually beat the game. Exploration is the main drive, so each planet needs to be interesting and engaging. Giant's Deep is a planet made mostly of water and islands. The planet has constant cyclones that can throw you into outer space. Exploring it is extremely dangerous because you can be left stranded without your ship, or thrown into space without it. When exploring the islands to look for clues, you have to be mindful of the cyclones and the possibility that they'll drive the island itself into space. There's a section underwater that you can't access because of a strong current of water. After trying again and again, you can just give up for the time being and explore somewhere else, eventually coming across a conversation that hints to a possible solution. I'll only spoil this particular section because I feel like it's important to display the brilliance of this game, but feel free to jump to the timestamp on screen if you want no spoilers. The thing that was under our nose the whole time is that most of the cyclones spin clockwise, sending everything to outer space, but a few of them spin counterclockwise, pulling everything inward. The solution to the puzzles were the cyclones we were avoiding all along. You could have reached that answer through a multitude of ways. Pure observation and experimentation, using the probe you have at your disposal. You could have gone through the correct cyclone by accident, giving you the draw to experiment and try and replicate the solution. You could even brute force a solution by going at a ridiculous speed to break through the current. Not only it's a brilliant puzzle, but that's what you can expect throughout the whole game. You've got a planet getting dragged into a black hole and the Hourglass Twins, planets that pour sand into one another, making it so you have to time your exploration to reach the deeper areas or wait so that the areas from the other planet are uncovered. All of the planets have their own mechanics and secrets that you need to figure out to progress, to uncover the truth, to stop the cycle. Its brilliance lies in the journey to understand it, to answer its questions, in the delivery of its answers, done in a way that drives the player to think and theorize how to move forward instead of figuring out right away. Almost like a scientist, sometimes even stumbling into the answer by accident and trying to figure out how he did it. It's a game focused on the wonders of exploration and the gathering of knowledge. Scratch that, it's not a game, it's an experience that you only have once. Not because you can't replay it, but because you can't erase the knowledge from your mind. You can't relive this beautiful spiritual journey of discovery, of wonder, death, acceptance, and self-knowledge. It's loneliness and companionship, it's frustration and satisfaction, experimentation and discovery. A journey that puts you in the role of a child, for the first time learning how to walk, how gravity works, the depths of the oceans, the wonders of space, the passage of time and the immortality of man. It's beauty, dread, awe. It's life. Elden Ring revolutionized the gaming industry in a lot of ways, with repercussions that we'll probably be seeing in the next years. It showed that harder games that don't hold the player's hand can have a widespread mainstream appeal. Not only that, but it set a new standard for interesting open world designs. Against the current push of making progressively bigger open worlds, From Software decided to focus on quality over quantity. A reasonable dense open world in place of a vast empty one. Instead of overwhelming the player with countless map markers, From Software chooses to guide the player organically by attracting their attention to areas that stand out. Maybe you found a glowing banner in the middle of nowhere, decided to interact with it, and ghost food trucks appeared. Maybe you should follow it. A tower draws your attention. Maybe there's a cool reward inside of it. You looked from a distance and found a giant turtle with a construction on its back. What is that? They never tell you what the puzzle is, you just have to go to the area and figure out on your own. You don't get a quest objective telling you to interact with the banner, to follow the food tracks, or to figure out what the turtle is about. It's up to the player to be interested and go after it. There is a formula. But you don't know that yet because the patterns aren't shown right away and because the game is unpredictable. There are enemy camps like any open world, but they aren't your standard defeat all enemies type camps. Just some enemies gathered. If you defeat them, you may find a chest with a cool sword or a good summon. Maybe you find a tunnel with a boss inside it, an NPC asking for help, or maybe you find a chest that will teleport you unwillingly across the map to a harder area. You're not traversing a digitally catered world where everything has been discovered and is laid out in front of you like a checklist to go through. It's a lived-in habitat and you are just another factor in it. You don't know what awaits you at every corner and you have to find out on your own. The points of interest are marked. The map is built in a way that is constantly drawing the player's attention to something that will spark their curiosity to explore and understand, and they are always well rewarded for it. It's your job to figure out what is interesting to come back later and what is not. Not holding the player's hands makes the game's interactions organic and natural. It drives the player to action. Not because a checklist compels him to, but because of his curiosity and feeling of wonder. You're braving a new, depressing, unpredictable and magical world. An explorer, mapping the land and finding its secrets. From its beautiful humbling vistas to its decrepit and perverted realities. Hogwarts Legacy doesn't fight a formula like Elden Ring does. Its open world is, for the most part, dull and uninspired. The complete opposite can be said about the castle itself. Not only is the castle that a lot of us wanted to explore for so long, but Hogwarts feels alive and magical, like its own character. There is always something happening, something moving, something to interact with, some secret to find out or a passage to uncover. You receive rewards for finding those secrets, but the castle feels like an old house in the sense that it feels rewarding to explore and find a secret passage or a hidden area. There was a moment when I was going up some stairs. I looked at a wall and saw that there was a room there. There were no doors of access, no other area that led to it. I kept searching and eventually I just tried to walk through the wall, only to find a secret passage to a room filled with imagery that seemed to tell a story. The narrative displayed in the images didn't make much sense to me, in contrast with the werewolf statue displayed in the room. So after some time experimenting, when I used the Lumo spell, the images changed, and it told a story about a woman who ended up becoming a werewolf. I didn't get much from that moment apart from a field guide page, a collectible from the game. I didn't get much, but I kinda liked it better because of it. It made me feel like the castle wasn't there just to entertain me, to provide me with content. It was its own thing with its own story. I was just living inside getting glimpses of it. Zelda Tears of the Kingdom provided me with a feeling unlike anything I had experienced in the recent years. There is wonder in the exploration of its open world, one that, like Elden Ring, manages to attract the player with its visual design and isn't filled with map markers, trusting the player to be interested enough to explore. But the feeling that Zelda gave me that is really rare was almost like a childlike feeling of experimentation. The game gives you freedom to build numerous devices, from hoverbikes to primitive planes and vehicles. There are multiple possibilities and it's up to the player to use their imagination to solve the problems presented to them, or to choose how they intend on traversing the world. It's fun to try the weirdest combinations to see if it works, attaching an explosive barrel to your shield and see what happens, a rocket to go upward or a minecart to shield surf across the terrain. The game gives you examples so you know how the devices work, but you are incentivized to experiment and come up with creative solutions to the problems presented to you. There is no right answer. Games in general have this unwritten rule that you have to complete the objectives in the correct specified way and none other. The shrines in the game provide puzzles and you are given the tools to complete them. One of the puzzles has you timing the use of the rewind feature to manage to hit a target with a metal ball. If it followed a standard game rule, the puzzle will only finish once the ball hit a target. But if it follows an in-world physics rule, the target would be activated by kinetic energy. If you try to use a bomb barrel, it just works and you complete the puzzle. Zelda obeys a general rule of the world, not a game rule like most games. It doesn't hold the player's hand either. A lot of the times it will tell you a general direction, pointing out landmarks or a riddle to figure out where you need to go for a side quest. Sometimes the game will hide a cool piece of armor in a random ruin, behind a tiny hole in the wall that you have to crawl through, hidden behind debris that you have to remove. Exploration is satisfying because, like Elden Ring, the game doesn't care if you can't find everything. The map is filled with shrines and enemy bases, which is formulaic and can be repetitive, especially because doing the shrines feels necessary to upgrade your character. But it doesn't feel that way a lot of the time because the gameplay is varied. The shrines are all different, providing unique challenges and teaching the player how the mechanics work so they can give their own spin to them. The combat is always interesting because of the variety introduced by the combinations you get to experiment with. There are very few games that provide that feeling of wonder, and a huge reason for that is you already know what to expect when you get into a game, or if you don't, it just tells you right away. It's no coincidence that most of the games that provide that feeling are rarely holding the player's hand whilst they do it. Video games are like magic, in the sense that they can be mystical and wonderful, but revealing the trick can break the illusion. The player isn't exploring, he's just walking to the objective. You already know what to expect. There's no need to pay attention to your surroundings because everything important has already been highlighted. Good game design comes from guiding the player without them knowing. The shrines in Zelda have lights on top of them, and they disappear after you complete them. That's how the game dynamically tells you what is interesting and what is not from within the game's lore without breaking illusion. Elden Ring does the same thing on a bigger scale. If anything draws your attention in the game, chances are that it is something worth exploring. The Sites of Grace point you to the next one within the main path. It's giving you a general direction and not a quest objective on screen. Its map tracks only a few things, and it's your job to mark where an interesting NPC is, some cave you have already explored, or a tower you don't know the use for yet. Similar to Outer Wilds, in which there is no quest marker, there's only a ship log that you fill with your discoveries. It's not telling you what to do, only where you've been and where there might still be things to explore. The world is crafted in a way that is constantly driving the player's curiosity to explore, discover, and figure out. The game never tells the player to explore, and it never has to. From a huge turtle carrying a temple to a mage tower, the player's curiosity is the only thing driving them to understand and make sense of it. Tears of the Kingdom not always telling you where you need to go or what you need to do makes it so you have to think and not mindlessly follow a quest marker. It also gives you a tool to experiment and find your own way to overcome the game's challenges. These games don't care if you experience every single thing they have to offer, and they are better off because of it. They've got a strong sense of identity and purpose, and the game's features are made around that. Exploration is rewarding because you found something, you weren't guided to it. Their goal is to provide a generally good experience and an interesting, engaging world with deeper layers for those who look close enough. Because of that, the activities have to be meaningful, fun, and rewarding for the player to get organically sidetracked in between objectives, and not some repetitive checklist they feel compelled to go through. They reminded me of times in my own life when I wasn't sure where I should go, what path I should take. From a very young age, we are expected to decide our whole future. Overwhelmed with choices, some of us are paralyzed, imprisoned by uncertainty. But having those moments decided for you can feel like another type of prison. Game design can feel overwhelming, too straightforward and arbitrary. It's the difference between work and fun, needing to clear out another camp or explore and discover on your own. Being challenged to find creative ways to overcome the game's challenges or being told the only way to do so. When choosing a path, standing still can be a choice on its own, even if we don't realize it. These games manage to provide the wonders of exploration in different ways. Hogwarts Castle feels alive, magical, and interesting to explore. From puzzles to secret rooms, finding its secrets is rewarding on its own. I only wish the game had more of that. Tears of the Kingdom provided a childlike wonder to explore the game's features and find your own way to overcome the game's challenges. It's compelling you to cheat, to use the world's rules to complete the puzzles the way you want to. The exploration in Outer Wilds is the main objective, and how you discover how to complete the game, by uncovering the world's rules. Elden Ring doesn't care if you explore its world, but its brilliant game design begs you to. Its activities make you curious to explore and understand. Its exploration is rewarding and unpredictable. Sometimes you can even be rewarded with a whole new map that most players won't even see. The lack of a leash can feel overwhelming for some and exhilarating for others. This whole new world to explore the way you want to. It's not about not guiding the player, but finding smart, subtle, and undisruptible ways to do so. Exchanging the yellow paint for a smart lighting trick, a clever level design, or some scratches on the wall. Even some lore-driven UI elements, like the neon lights you can see in Horizon Forbidden West when you scan the environment. It's not about keeping elements of the game hidden, but rewarding exploration and ingenuity, immersing the player in the world of the game instead of demanding their engagement. The most memorable moments I had with these games were when I couldn't feel the leash, to find something on my own inside Hogwarts, to use the rules of the world to brute force progression in Zelda and Outer Wilds, to explore its planets and the world of Elden Ring. These are moments when I felt like these weren't only digital parks made for our amusement, but their own worlds with their own rules. Magical realms that parallel ours in a primal manner. A world where there is no one right way to do things. Everything is unpredictable and the objective isn't quite clear. Moments when I'd wonder, where should I go? What happened? How can I move forward? What awaits me next? If there's one thing these games taught me is that when overwhelmed with choices, taking any path is better than standing still. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video. If you want to see more, I'm always uploading essays and narrative analysis of games. Thank you.